Hey guys, it's Viejo here, and we're right at the end of February in 2025. Had a nice week of weather here on the central coast of California. I hope things are improving for you folks over there on the East Coast and in the Midwest. You guys have been struggling, I know. Hey, I got a bunch of beam type balances spread out here on the bench, and many of you have one or the other or something similar to these. And most of them, of the more modern ones, have a feature that's called magnetic damping, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Let's take a look at what I got here first, and then we'll get into it. All right, let's take a look at a few of these guys. Hey there, Leadsmith. So I've got several beam scales out here. This is an old Redding. It's a hydraulically dampened balance. Back here I've got a Lyman M5, got an RCBS 1010. Those two, you might notice some similarities in the housing. That's because they're both made by O-House. Okay. Back here I've got an RCBS 505, and out here we have the RCBS 510. Okay. So these are all dampened in one way or the other. Well, what do we mean by that? For example, here's a little pamphlet that came with the Lyman M5, and it says your M5 is equipped with magnetic damping, which speeds weighing without affecting sensitivity or accuracy. So let's just kind of go ahead and start getting into this and talk about this thing called magnetic damping. You know, maybe you're already well aware of how it works and what it is, but maybe you're not. So let's get a little closer look and see how these balances actually work. And we're going to start with looking at this little Redding balance first. In its current condition right now as we speak, this is an undampened balance. There's no damping at all that's going on this. And by damping, we're talking about slowing the beam movement down so that it doesn't just get in there and sit and bounce around all day long while it's trying to come to zero. Okay, we need some way to slow that down. Well, let's start with the Redding and kind of see what it does without any damping at all. All right, this guy is not currently set up to do any damping at all. It's a hydraulically dampened scale, and I don't have the hydraulics in there right now. What this is intended to do, let me take this off, is see that paddle right here? Okay, that paddle is intended to move back and forth in that reservoir. Here's our Redding scale kind of out here by itself. Let's take a quick look at the principle of hydraulic damping. Okay, so we'll do a weight here with no liquid in the reservoir, and then we'll do it with some water in there. All right, guys, I've got a 10 grain check weight in the pan over there, and I'm just going to ease my beam down, and then I'm going to let it go. And you count how many oscillations it takes for this guy with no damping at all to settle. Oops, that wasn't fair. Let's do it again. There we go. So there's 1, 2, 3, and we're in a no breeze area. 4, 5, 6-ish. I'll give it 6. You can use just plain old water in these guys. Some folks use oil. Water will pretty much work. So let's take a look at that. So I've got some water here. I'm going to dump just plain water into the reservoir. Carefully remove my beam and pan. Oops, and dump my check weight all over the place. And we'll just go ahead and add this little bit of water in there. Probably spill it all over the place as I usually do. Okay, the reservoir is full. In fact, it's a little bit over full. So let me go ahead and replace my beam and pan. And that paddle, as you see, goes right down into the water. And now with the water in there, in the reservoir, I'll do the same thing. Push the beam down to the bottom and let it go. There's one, maybe 2.5. Okay, so that's hydraulic damping. All right, well, I think you could see that the Reading scale, took a number of swings before it finally came to rest at the 0 position. And, it wasn't horrible, but imagine if you're going to want to weigh 50 individual charges out, and you got to sit there for each and every one of those, to slow down and finally come to rest. Well, that's where damping comes in. Let's go in and take a look at how some of these others that have damping, in all 4 of these other cases, it's going to be magnetic damping, not hydraulic damping like this one does. Okay, let's check out the RCBS 510. Maybe if I put a little light on there, you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, and remember how that Reading scale did when we put the 5 grain weight. I've got my poise set to 5 grains here. Okay, up comes the beam, and it almost instantly zeroes itself out. Okay, I don't have any of these adjusted 100%, but we're close there. But it stopped moving right away, huh? Okay, let's go check the 1010. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the 1010. I've got that same 5 grain weight, and I also have the poise on the 1010 set for 5 grains. So watch the pointer. Okay. Very quickly comes to rest, right? Much faster than the Reading over there. We can do the same thing. Let's go over here to the Lyman scale. Oops. And I'll just take that check weight and dump it right into the Lyman pan that I also have set for 5 grains. Kind of the same thing. Maybe one up and down swing, and that was it. Okay, now again, kind of focus on the pointer over there, and I have my poise here set at 5 grains as well. We'll put the 5 grain check weight in there. Okay. And pretty quickly, I think you would agree that the beams on these magnetically dampened balances came into rest at 0 much more quickly than that Reading did, which was not dampened. Well, why is that? Well, obviously it's because of this magnetic dampen thing, but exactly how does that work? Let's take a look at it. All right, we'll take a look at the 505 scale here first. This is fairly simple. So our beam normally sits here, and we've got this copper blade. Copper's a conductor of electricity, right? Okay, and you can't see them, but on the other side here of these 2 little towers are a couple of magnets. Let me turn this over so that you can see. And I've got the adjustment foot removed because it blocks the view a little bit. Okay. And down inside here is a pair of bar magnets. There's one right there, and there's another one right there. See it? With our other balances, the magnets are kind of down in that channel on the 1010. Same thing over here on the 510. Move the light a little bit. I think you can probably see the magnets down in there. See them? Okay. With the Lyman, the magnets are in this housing. That housing can be popped off, but you can't see the magnets visibly. They are in there though. All right. And what happens is this. As our copper blade moves up and down in that magnetic field, remember those 2 little magnets under there, an electric current is established in that copper blade. That's called electromagnetic induction. It's an induced current. Let's take a look at another example of that. All right, so we're hooked up here to our little digital cheapy multimeter. And I've got just a coil of wire here, and we have the meter set up to register amps. What I have here is a bar magnet, And watch the screen as I move the bar magnet in and out of that coil. Okay, so we have relative motion between the magnetic field of the bar magnet and the conductor. And it doesn't matter which moves. You can move the magnet or you can move the conductor, okay? And we still register a small current. Okay, so as we saw, when we move a conductor within a magnetic field or move the magnetic field around the conductor, it doesn't matter, it's relative motion between the two, we get a current established in that conductor. Well, that's not the end of the story, because that electric current that gets established or induced in that copper blade creates its own magnetic field. Let's take a quick look at that. All right, so we got a simple little demonstration here. We got a battery there, okay, a small 1.5-volt battery, piece of conducting wire, and it's just kind of taped in place to hold it. Because this wire is stiff and it's going to move all around. And what I'm going to do is just quickly connect the circuit here and complete a circuit so that we've got current going through that wire that's crossing over the top of the compass. Now, as you know, the compass needle itself is a magnet, okay? But watch what happens when I complete the circuit. Watch that compass needle. See that? Okay, and we know that a compass needle is going to react to a magnetic field. So that's our indication that current moving through a conductor creates its own magnetic field, which the compass needle in turn reacts with like that. So two things going on because of the motion of that copper blade in there, right? We have a current that's electromagnetically induced in the blade, and that current in turn produces its own magnetic field. Now we got two magnetic fields working in there. Well, guess what? Those two magnetic fields oppose each other. And what do opposites do? They attract. So we have one magnetic field opposing the other, and they attract each other until this guy stops moving. All right, so as it goes down one way, we get a current induced in one direction in that conductor, and its magnetic field wants to attract the magnetic field of the magnets, and the bar comes up. As we go up this way, okay, we end up with an opposite field, okay, again, and it's attracted back down to those two bar magnets. Well, as soon as this guy stops moving, we have no more electric current in here, and that magnetic field that was induced in the copper blade is over with, and the beam comes to rest. So that's how magnetic damping works, and we really don't have to worry about it or do anything about it other than keep those permanent magnets free of debris, because they will attract other little bits of ferrous material off your bench and so forth. So check them periodically, just make sure they're clean, okay, and that your blade is clean and there's nothing else down in that channel that doesn't belong there. And that's all you really got to do. And our three other O-house type scales that we've got out here all have that magnetic damping feature. So magnetic damping, what it is a way to get our beams on our balances here to come to rest at the zero position more quickly, okay, so that they don't sit there and bounce around. The way that it works is by electromagnetic induction, with the magnetic field that's built into the scale and a copper conductor. So that's the story on magnetic damping. But while we're here, I thought I'd show you something else about two of these other RCBS scales. They've got an additional feature that helps us with the speed at which we can get that beam to come up to zero as we're dumping powder in here. It's a feature that of the ones that I have here is only found on the 510 and the 1010. Now that new RCBS 1000, I don't know if it has this feature or not. Somebody out there, maybe one of you guys has that scale and can tell me. But what we're talking about is a feature that RCBS calls approach to zero. Let's kind of get in here and work with these a little bit and see what that one's all about. Okay, I've got my poise set here for 10 grains, and I've got a scoop of Vitavari N340 here. And so if I want to weigh out 10 grains on this 505 scale, which has no approach to zero, we dump, nothing happens. Watch that pointer, nothing happening until finally we get up really close. And I got lucky there. But the tendency is that this guy will not react until we're right at or almost right at the desired weight, and then it wants to kind of come over and overshoot. Let's try the 510 and the 1010 have an additional feature called approach to zero. On the 510, it's what these three little dots are about there on the scale. See those three little dots, okay, below the graduation marks? Okay. The 1010 doesn't have dots. Instead, it has this decreasing diameter, sort of a wedge down here. All right, we'll carefully remove the beam here and kind of get a mental image of this blade here and how long that blade is. Okay. We'll take the 510 here, the one that had those dots on it. I'm going to turn it over. Okay, down inside here is a leaf spring. Okay, see that? It's just a leaf. Okay, and what happens is this, when hang on, gotta hold this together so it doesn't fall apart on us here. When this guy is in the down position, okay, you see that movement there? The blade comes down and contacts that leaf spring. Okay, see it? And that leaf spring is pushing up on our blade. So as the beam, having been set there for 10 grains, okay, is way down here, at its stop position, the bottom of our blade is engaging that leaf spring, and it's getting a little bit of an upward boost. And what that does is, as I start to add powder, remember this, with this guy all the way down, that blade is engaging that leaf spring down there. And that leaf spring is giving the bottom of that blade a boost. And it boosts it all the way up through those three dots, okay, and holds the balance kind of steady. And then once we get above those three dots, okay, the beam reacts a little more quickly, okay, and we know that we need to slow our additions of powder down. So we got some boost down here. When we get above the three dots with that pointer, okay, that boost is no longer there. So with the 505 over here, which has no approach to zero feature on it, we saw that we feel, nothing happens over here until we're almost right at our desired weight, and then all of a sudden the beam pops up. Well, if we don't do anything and we keep filling at the same rate over here, keep dumping our powder in at the same rate, we're going to overshoot, okay, and we don't like that. Compared to the 510 and the 1010 back there, as soon as we start dumping powder, we start seeing some reaction over here. Okay, no matter what our fill rate is, we're going to see some reaction. But once we get up to the top of those three dots up there, now we're disengaged from that leaf spring, and the beam is going to react more quickly if we keep up the same rate. So we kind of watch this, and when we get to the top of those three dots or the top of the little wedge over there on the 1010, we know, hey, we're getting close to our desired weight. We better slow our fill rate over here. Okay, it's like an early warning system. Okay, so of the scales that we have here, of course the Redding does not have that feature on it. There's nothing underneath there except a number 2. Show you the bottom of this one. This one is really nice and heavy. I actually kind of like this scale. We've got an adjustment screw there. Okay, and there's that number 2 right there. Okay, that's all that's on here, other than the word Redding. but it is a nice heavy base to it. But of the others that are out here that are all made by O-House for RCBS and Lyman, only these two, the 1010 and the 510, have that approach to zero feature. Interestingly enough, the Lyman, also made by O-House in the style of the 1010, does not have that feature either. Okay, just those two. Okay guys, there you go. We took a look at this damping feature that's found in one way or the other of our beam scales that we use for reloading. We looked specifically at magnetic damping and found out how that worked. Something that we need to be aware that those magnets are in there because they're going to attract stuff, and you got to get in there and clean those out periodically. Just take a Q-tip down in there, wipe them out, and keep them clean. And we looked at a feature of these two RCBS scales here called Approach to Zero. So I think that that's about enough of this stuff. I hope you enjoyed that video and maybe got something out of it. If you got other questions or contributions, feel free to drop down in there in the comment section and let me know what you think. But from the Viejo bench for now, that's all she wrote.